Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talking Cardboard. My name is Cory, your 9th favorite YouTube board game reviewer on the internet. And today's video, not gonna lie, was a little bit of a difficult one for me because as you can see in the title, luck games. I don't play a lot of luck-driven games, so these aren't like 100% luck-driven, but it has a little bit more luck involved in these titles, more so than I typically would gravitate toward in a game. So these are my top 5 luck-driven board games. Alright, and my number 5 favorite luck-driven board game of all time is currently this small little card game, actually, called Love Letter. In Love Letter, it plays 2 to 4 players, plays very quickly and a lot of fun, but yes, it does have its fair share of luck. So pretty much you have these red tokens that are in the box that stand in as markers for your life total in this game. And if you can eliminate your opponent or your opponents, they have to eliminate one of their life total cubes. And if you can get their life cubes down to 0, you win the game. Essentially, it is just a deck of cards. You shuffle up all 16 cards. You ditch one of the cards off the top of the deck, and then each player draws 1 card off the top of the deck to be their hand. So they only have a hand of 1 card. What makes this game really unique is that each of the cards have different values on them, from a soldier, which is a value 1, all the way up to the princess, which is a value 8, and you pretty much just want to be the last player standing. Soldiers are real strong. They have an effect where you can target players and guess what card a player has in their hand, and if you guess correctly, you eliminate them from the round, or if you can get through the entire deck and you are the last player standing with the highest value, then you win the round, and the rest of the players have to eliminate one of their life total cubes. But each of the cards have different effects on it and do different things to your opponents. It's really fun, like I said, really fun and quick to play, and not a lot to it, but there is a lot of luck involved in the game based on what cards you're drawing. The luck mitigation in this game, and I guess the reason why I like it so much, is that there is a lot of bluffing in this game, or trying to read your opponents on what card they might have in their hand, so it isn't just all luck. I don't think any of the games on the list here today will be completely all luck, but they definitely are more luck-driven than a typical game that I would gravitate toward. So, for example, just reading off a couple of cards here, the number 4 card is the Priestess, and it says the effect: until your next turn, you ignore all effects that target you, so that can really protect you. Like I said, you start off the game with 1 card in your hand, and then on your turn, you draw 1 card and then decide which out of the 2 cards you are going to play for its effect. The number 2 value card is the Clown, and the Clown's effect is you can look at target player's hand. So for example, if you had the Clown in your hand and you drew into a soldier, you could look at an opponent's hand to see what card they have in their hand, and then on your next turn play a soldier to have a better idea for your guess on which card they might have remaining in their hand to try to eliminate them. The General, the 6 value, the effect is change hands with a target player. So that can be real effective as well, because obviously you'll know that they then have the General in their hand that you just gave them, and then if they give you a soldier, you can then guess that card. Or if it's the end of the round and the deck is completely run out of cards, and you switch your General value 6 and they had the Princess value 8, then you then win the round with the higher value card. So just really cool, really neat and unique. 16 cards is all the deck has, and it plays really fast. And like I said, it's more bluffing and trying to read your opponents to try to mitigate that luck element. But there is definitely a fair share of luck in Love Letter. So that's my number 5. All right, my number 4 game on the list here is, what do you typically think of when you think of luck-driven games? Well, the first thing that comes to mind for me is dice rolling, and this game definitely has a lot of dice rolling in it, and that is Bang the Dice Game. This game, it plays all the way from 3 up to 8 players, so I really appreciate that. It is difficult to find a lot of games that play with those higher player counts. Anything like 6 players and above is typically pretty hard to find, and on the box here it says it plays in 15 minutes, which is pretty accurate. So if you can get 6, 7, or 8 players to the table and play a game of this in 15 minutes, it definitely has a lot of bang for its buck. So anyway, Bang the Dice game, it is another game like in Love Letter where you're trying to eliminate your opponent's life totals, and you do that by rolling dice. There are different sides to the dice, different values on whether or not you're going to use a Gatling gun to shoot at your opponent, or some dynamite, or the arrows. You could call the Native Americans to help you out, and beer in this game heals your life points. So it's all about rolling those dice and seeing what you get, and it's in common Yahtzee style. Everybody knows Yahtzee, where you get to roll the dice or re-roll up to 3 times, and then what you are left with is what you can do with the dice. So essentially, there are some hidden roles in this game as well, where you have some players that are on the same team as you, and you're trying to find the outlaws, or you have other players that are working together in kind of like a team versus team style in this game. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of luck mixed in, obviously, with the dice roll and getting what you get when you roll those dice. But like I said, there is a little bit of mitigation to that, where you can re-roll up to 3 times. Yeah, with any dice rolling in any games, obviously there's going to be that large element of luck involved in that. But Bang the Dice game does it so well because it is so fast playing and plays such a large group of players that this is definitely a fun one to play if you've got a group of 6, 7, or 8 players and you're looking for something to play a couple times that won't take up your entire night. So that is Bang the Dice game. All right, to my number 3 game on the list is one of my wife's favorite games of all time, but like you see here, it is my 3rd favorite game that has some luck involved in it, so definitely pretty high up there, and I do really enjoy this game a lot, and this game is Kingsburg. In Kingsburg, another game where you are rolling dice. And with that, like I said, anytime you're rolling dice, there is luck involved. But what's cool about Kingsburg is that it's dice worker placement. So you've got a bunch of these nobles that are on the main player board, and you roll 3 dice, and based on which 3 dice you roll, you can then place those on the noble family to try to collect resources, and then use those resources to build buildings on your main player board. I do have the expansion for this game, and I play with it every time because it does add a lot of variability in the different buildings you are going after, so that you and your opponents are not trying to build the same buildings every single game. It does add a lot of variability with that, but really in Kingsburg, like I said, all you're doing is trying to gather resources from the noble family and the villagers to try to then build buildings to get victory points. And the different buildings that you are building can defend against the dragon or the monster attack at the end of every round, because there is a monster that can attack you to give you negative victory points. So there is some defending with defense towers and things like that, all in the while trying to combo the different buildings you're building to gain victory points. And the entire system, the entire engine that runs the game, are the 3 dice that you are rolling. The values on the board are everything from 1 up to 18. So for example, if you roll 3 6s, that is the only time then you can set them on the king to gather the resources that the king can offer. What you can also do that is really fun and exciting is split up your dice. So for example, the 1 character, if you roll a 1, you could place 1 die onto that, and then if your other 2 numbers were a 3 and a 4, you could then place 1 on a 3, 1 on a 4, or you can combine the 2 into a 7 to place those dice onto the 7. You are taking turns doing these actions though, so for example, if you do want to use the 3 and the 4 for the 7, but you decide to use your 1 pip die first to go onto the 1 villager to collect those, then you are risking a chance of one of the other players using their dice to then take the 7 person on the board itself too. So you have to be aware of that, and it's just a very simple, quick, easy playing game where you are just building up those buildings for victory points and really paying attention to what all of your other opponents are rolling on their dice as well. There are some spots that give you these tokens that allow you to mitigate the dice, and like I said in the intro, I don't like 100% luck driven games, but with a heavy dose of luck given some mitigation, I can really get behind that, and Kingsburg does that extremely well. So that is my number 3, Kingsburg. All right, and my number 2 favorite luck-driven game of all time is another really small card game, and this game is called Biblios. If you can get your hands on this one and find a copy of it in a store or online, it's definitely worth the pickup. So for this game, unfortunately, it just says it goes from 2 to 4 players, so it doesn't play up to a ton of players, but if you typically play with 2 to 4 players and you're looking for a game that plays in 30 minutes like this one does, this is a fantastic, not quite filler, but maybe just filler plus. I mean, I guess it could qualify for a filler game if you consider a 30-minute game a filler, but it's kind of in that filler plus category where it feels meaty enough to be more of a main game for the night if you play it a few times, but also it is quick enough to where if you just play it, one time, you could definitely utilize it as a filler game as well. But in Biblios, it is a card game that have different values on it, and essentially you are just trying to end up with the highest value of these different types of card values based on the color of the card. And it's just a set collection game. So the highest value of each set win the points for that set, and the points are dictated by these dice. At the beginning of the game, you roll these dice out, and depending on the color of die with that pip value on it, that'll be how many points that color of card set is worth at the end of the game. So some colors of cards will be more valuable or less valuable depending on the die roll at the beginning of the game. Some of the dice can be mitigated with different cards as well. Like this one here, it's got one die in the top right corner, and then it's got a -1 in the top left. So if you play this card, you can subtract 1 victory point value from any of the colored dice you would like. If you're not really collecting a ton of colors of that specific set, you can make that less valuable for your opponents if you think your opponents are collecting a high value on that set. And there's also some +1 or -1 and some other mitigation cards as well. Another really cool, unique thing about Biblios is that this game is played in 2 phases. So it is essentially kind of like a I split, you choose type of game where when it's your turn, you draw a number of cards off the top of the deck equal to the number of players playing, and you decide which card you get to keep for yourself, which card your opponents each get, and then the leftover card goes into the center of the table. Because what's fun with that is that after the entire stack of cards has run out, and you've got a big pile of cards now in the center of the table, that pile of cards is then auctioned off in the second half of the game, where you have cards in your hand that you may have kept for yourself during the first half of the game that have gold on it. And the gold is valued from 1 up to 3. So you can keep gold cards that you can then utilize in the second half of the game to auction off those cards and buy and purchase those additional set collection cards to your personal stack during the second half of the game. So it's really cool how the 2 phases work. It's kind of like the I split, you choose, or I guess more specifically, more of like a card drafting type system in the first half of the game. And then in the second half of the game, you are using some of the cards you had drafted during the first half to then purchase cards during an auction. So it's really, really fun and unique, and one that plays very quickly again, but definitely has enough meat to it to where I keep coming back to it over and over again, even if it's the main game of the night. So that is Biblios. All right, and finally, my number 1 favorite board game of all time that has a heavy dose of luck involved in it. And this game is just fantastic. It definitely makes my top 50 favorite board games of all time list quite often, and it is 5 Tribes. 5 Tribes, a lot of fun, but yes, it does have kind of a heavy dose of luck, because essentially what you're doing in this game is you are seeding a random set of map tiles with meeples, and each map tile gets 3 meeples of different colors, just random colors placed on the tiles at the start of the game. And it's got a Mancala mechanism to this game that I really enjoy, where on your turn you are choosing 1 pile of meeples, picking them up and then dropping them off orthogonally in a path type of style, 1 at a time, to then land on that last tile. And whatever tile you land on with the last meeple is the tile you are doing your action with. And all the different colors of meeples play different actions and play a different role in the way the game works. And the reason why this does have a heavy dose of luck involved in it is because if you've got a couple players that have played Five Tribes a lot and then a couple other players that have never played before or have only played a couple times, you can really set up the next player's turn to allow them to have a very big turn. It's very hard to see exactly what's going on the entirety of the map as you are picking up and dropping off meeples, that sometimes you might accidentally place a meeple or two of a certain color on certain tiles that allow for other players to have a really big turn. In Five Tribes, you are trying to get points in various ways, and like I said, the different colored meeples do different actions for you. I'm not going to get into all the specifics with the different actions, but the heavy dose of luck, like I said, is involved with just basically setting up your opponents involuntarily for really large turns, because you just like at the beginning of the game, you don't know exactly the best combinations or the best way to pick up and drop off meeples, and everything is randomized at the start of the game. So like the first player might be set up with a really powerful turn just by luck, the way the board was originally set up at the start of the game, and then the second player might be set up for maybe a weaker turn or that sort of thing. But if you can get beyond that, it is a lot of fun. And the turn order mechanism in this game is auctioned off every round, so you are actually spending gold to go up higher in turn order for that next turn. So that plays a big role in it, because you are trying to get the most victory points by the end of the game. But gold is victory points, and victory points is gold. So the gold you are literally spending and participating in an auction to then get higher in turn order, you are literally throwing away victory points to get higher up in turn order. But it is definitely another fun element to the game where you are bidding over that turn order, because turn order is so important based on the ever-changing state of the board and where meeples are picked up and dropped off from. So if you can get around that heavy dose of luck that's involved in the way the meeples are dropped, then Five Tribes is a fantastic game that I will never get rid of. I just really, really love the heck out of it. It's kind of fun to watch the way the board state gets manipulated and changes on each player's turn to try to then think and math out like what your best option will be. Definitely a strong puzzle and with that dose of luck in it. But if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check this out. This is my number one favorite luck-driven board game of all time. So if you liked today's list and would like to see more videos like this one, like the video, subscribe to the channel, we really appreciate it, and leave some comments in the comment section below on what your favorite luck-driven board games are of all time. So until next time, you all have a great day and have fun gaming.